In order to become a licensed social worker in the United States, you first need to complete a social work degree. You have the choice to complete either a Bachelor of Social Work or a Master of Social Work degree, or both, depending on your academic interests and career goals. The time it takes to complete the process and obtain licensure depends on the social work program that you enroll in, whether you study full or part-time, and the specific requirements set by your state. So in this video, we're gonna walk through the different timelines for pursuing a social work depending on which path you choose. The first step in becoming a social worker is pursuing an undergraduate degree. This can include either a Bachelor of Social Work or another undergraduate degree. Now, the trick is, if you do a Bachelor of Social Work, you can do the Advanced Standing Master of Social Work program, which is only 1 year. If you pursue another undergraduate degree, then you have to do the regular track MSW program, which is 2 years. So for me, when I started university, I knew that I wanted to become a social worker. So I did my Bachelor of Social Work so that I could basically get it done a year faster and save myself time and money in school. I know a lot of people complete a 4-year degree before realizing that they want to become a social worker, which is why it's so great that the option to do the 2-year MSW program is there. So for example, maybe you did your undergraduate degree in psychology and you didn't know what social work was. And over the years, you came to realize that social work was probably a good path for you. Instead of having to go back and do your Bachelor of Social Work, you can apply for the 2-year MSW program and get into the field that way. So you can definitely become a social worker with a Bachelor of Social Work degree, but a lot of people do choose to continue on to complete their Master of Social Work. I know for me, it took me 4 years to do my BSW. And so for me to get that 1 extra year of school and get my master's degree, it was well worth the return on investment because the career opportunities and the pay in my area was a lot higher with a Master of Social Work degree. Now, one thing I always say is that just because you have a BSW doesn't mean you can't have a great career. I know many people who have a BSW degree who were able to jump into the field, work their way up in organizations, and they have great jobs now. So after you graduate with your BSW or MSW, you have to get licensed as a social worker. And that can really vary depending on where you are. I'm in Ontario, Canada, and the process for getting registered with our governing body takes a few weeks. We don't have an entry to practice exam yet, and we also are not required to complete supervised hours before becoming registered as a social worker. Basically, you just have to meet the requirements, send them some documentation, and they give you the registration. Now, if you're in the United States, getting registered as a social worker is a whole different ballgame. And it's going to vary a lot depending on what state you're in. So, we'll kind of talk about it more generally, but you're gonna have to look into the details of wherever you plan to work. But in general, aspiring social workers must complete supervised experience hours. 3,000 hours seems to be a widely used standard, but those totals can range. So again, be sure to check with your state. Once you have your hours, you're going to write the licensing exam. So the Association of Social Work Boards exam is a requirement in the US for licensure and tests your competency in core areas of social work practice. Once you complete your 3,000 hours and pass your exam, then you're eligible to apply to become licensed in your state. So getting licensed typically includes submitting your application, paying a fee, undergoing a background check, and providing proof of qualifications. License titles and requirements also vary by state, so it's important to check with your state's licensing board to make sure that you meet all of the criteria. So in summary, the steps to becoming a social worker include pursuing a bachelor's degree, either a BSW or another degree, completing an MSW program, which takes 1 to 2 years depending on which 4-year degree you select, completing postgraduate supervised experience. And for those who require that, that's going to take about 2 to 3 years. And then studying for the licensing exam, passing and completing the application. And that can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. So the total time that it takes to become a social worker, while it can vary, it can take anywhere from 7 to 9 years from starting your bachelor's degree all the way to actually getting licensed.